seemed to arrive out of nowhere, hurtling himself into the very center of our consciousness, just when we needed a little diversion from several international crises. Once in the spotlight, he was majestic. Over 9 glory-filled days in Lake Placid, New York, while much of America was entranced by the U.S. hockey team's miraculous success, he methodically reduced an entire winter sport to a kind of private game, his game. And when it was over, he soon gave it up forever and disappeared into another life, leaving us to wonder, who was that guy and how did he do that?
ERIK Heiden won 5 individual gold medals. No person has ever dominated their sport at the Olympic level in that manner.
Everybody seemed to think before they started that ERIK Heiden was going to win a lot of medals. They weren't sure he would win all 5, but they knew he would be close.
Heiden was going to be the star of the Olympics, and he was the most hyped athlete, not only from the United States, but probably around the world.
Meanwhile, the Cold War had caught fire, and America was feeling the heat.
Massive Soviet military forces have invaded the small, non-aligned, sovereign nation of Afghanistan.
Shah had collapsed. Our people had been taken hostage. We were humiliated by almost nightly insults, burning the American flag and the rest. It was a time when I believe we were losing confidence in ourselves as a country.
Against a backdrop of international tension and uncertainty, America looked to its Olympic athletes, especially ERIK Heiden.
Nobody's ever been more on the spot in the Olympic Games than he was. It's going to be a terrible feeling. I can't imagine what it would be like when people are expecting you to do what previously has been impossible for anybody to do.
Heiden's first race was against America's 30-year nemesis.
The commies, the state professionals, the Ruskies.
Kulikov was a great pair for ERIK because he was the current world record holder. The 500 meter, that's a race of reaction.
And we've got a good start.
Heiden was terrific under pressure. He was able to look inside himself and dig deep for the strength that he had. Sometimes the pressure made him skate even better. He wasn't afraid of it. It was a challenge for him.
Coming a little bit wide. He came wide on the inner lane. ERIK Heiden has the lead as he crosses the finish line at 38:03. And so much for the Olympic record. Here's the man. He has won the gold medal in the one event where some people thought he might get pushed, but he really didn't get pushed at all. Congratulations, ERIK.
Thanks a lot.
The next day, ERIK went from the sprint to the 5,000 meters.
I think that race hurts the most, and ERIK might say that that's the one that physically hurts the most because you have to maintain this high intensity for such a long period of time. It's not a race where you can relax too much.
7:02.29 for ERIK Heiden. That is a new Olympic record.
And every time he went on the ice, he set a record. I don't know what it is. I don't even think he knows what it is. I think that's one of those things that simply happens.
It was like the snowball effect. He just started rolling down the mountain in one race after another. And after, he won 2 gold medals, I knew something special was going to happen.
And we've got a good start.
1,000 meters, this was a race that ERIK pretty much dominated.
Skates and power coming down off the first turn. Only one other man has won 3 golds in these Olympic Games.
I couldn't wait to watch ERIK. He'd climb the fence and watch him go around and skate. And he'd win his gold medal, and you'd go back in the locker room, hey, he did it again.
And here he comes. Powerful man driving across the finish line. The time is 1:15.18. That is a new Olympic record.
ERIK Heiden has 3 now for the United States.
All of a sudden, now everybody's hearing the name ERIK Heiden when we had obviously known this for years.
When the news came that ERIK had won another race and set another record, the news was in every classroom in the building here within a matter of seconds. We just hoped that there wasn't going to be some unfortunate accident.
In the 1,500 meters, ERIK broke into an early lead. Then, with the race in hand, he almost lost it.
Skating the inner right now, you can see that Jim is right with him, and he almost fell down. He almost fell coming off that.
I just remember my heart stopping on the backstretch because he went down, he put his hand on the ice, and literally thought that was it.
Coming down off the final turn. Slipped there a moment ago. This time he handles it very well. Here's the drive. Watch the time.
Erik Heiden, trying for 5, easily won his 4th gold medal.
With 4 gold medals, he had only one race left, the 10,000 meters. The editors at Time magazine had decided to make Erik the focus of an inside cover story. This posed a problem.
Time magazine went to press on Saturday night. Erik wasn't going to receive his 5th gold medal until Saturday night about 10 o'clock, when the presses of Time magazine would have been rolling. Therefore, impossible to take a picture. So the real hope was to get this picture shot on Thursday. The real problem was getting Erik Heiden to pose with 5 gold medals.
Erik was just fabulous about it. We kept him for a couple of hours. He was starving. And when someone that size and that solid tells you they're hungry, you naturally get some food. So we ordered pizzas and quarts and quarts and quarts of milk, which Erik, standing in his skivvies, just absolutely wolfed down. I mean, just inhaled. The only thing that he was really concerned about was he wanted to own the photographs so that he wouldn't be exploited as time went on. He was not at all superstitious.
While Heiden waited for his 5th and final race, Team USA faced the Soviet Union.
Both the hockey athletes and Heiden were spurred on by each other's success.
You believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable!
This guy's got to skate the next day, and we're sitting up in one of the news booths where the reporters were watching these guys play. And it's late at night, and he's got to get up the next day and skate a race.
And we're sitting in the car to go to the rink to get ready for his race, and he just wasn't there. He wasn't there. He wasn't there. I went back and went into his room, and he was still asleep. So, and I had no idea he was out that night, thank goodness. I just woke him up and said, Erik, we got to be at the rink for warm-up. So he quickly just threw everything together, ran into the cafeteria, grabbed bread. That's all he did, just grab a bunch of bread and start shoving it in his mouth, and got ready for his race.
Erik will be skating in a pair with the man who holds the world record, Victor Lyoskin. And on the first done, we have a good start.
This guy won everything from the 500 meters to the 10,000 meters. That's like saying somebody's going to go to the Olympic Games and win the 100-meter dash and the marathon.
Erik Heiden going for his 5th individual gold medal.
For a skater, it was like watching a dream, because it's just, it'll never be done again.
Way out in front of Lyoskin.
Erik Heiden's performance was probably the greatest individual performance in history.
Moving powerfully for the finish line, and he snaps the time being at 14:28:13, a new world and Olympic record.
And for those of us who had the privilege of being part of it, it was a memorable happening. And I don't believe we'll ever see it again.
Sports Century's 50 Greatest Athletes is presented by Oldsmobile.
Owning 5 of the 6 gold medals won by the U.S., Erik Heiden was the nation's favorite son in the weeks after the Lake Placid Games. Huge financial reward was there for the taking.
Erik Heiden could have been a zillionaire. And instead, he literally walked off in the sunset.
He was very modest about it, very private. And that's totally in keeping with the person I know to be Erik Heiden.
I think people kind of question my turning down a lot of the endorsements. One of the reasons was I certainly didn't need the money. My father's a doctor, and so I've always had, the finances to do what I wanted to do.
We wanted it to be for as large money as possible. If we're going to do very few things, we wanted people to pay well for what they did do. We made a deal with Crest toothpaste. The copy was utterly legitimate. It said, I've only had one cavity in my life. Only Erik had only had one cavity. And that's because I've used Crest since I'm a kid, which he had. Over the years, we did an American Express ad, did a Visa card ad. And again, these are all, we think, products that aren't terribly controversial and are things that he uses in his daily life, and they paid pretty well.
A lot of people feel that Erik missed out on a lot of that money because he didn't
put his face on every billboard and on every cereal box and do the endorsement thing, but that is really a misconception. He did not want to ruin his life. He did not want to wake up in the morning and have somebody like peeking in his bedroom window with a camera.
Erik was born into a highly competitive atmosphere fostered by his grandfather, former hockey player and college coach.
The way he was raised, I mean, there was always physical activity going on. There was always something for him to participate in. I mean, he was skating at 2 or 3 years old, for goodness sake.
We walk right in the front door, and the first thing I see is that their living room has been transformed into a gymnasium, complete with rings and pommel horse and pegboard and everything.
My grandpa taught me this.
Our parents were very supportive in our athletic endeavors. I was a really good all-around athlete, and I think that helped to push Erik, especially in his speed skating training. One time we were doing chin-ups, and both of us were convinced that we were going to beat the other one at doing more chin-ups. And
we got in a contest. Okay, you do 1 pull-up, I'll do 1 pull-up. You do 2 pull-ups, I'll do 2 pull-ups.
well, this kept going, and we were on 8, and he did 8, and then I did 9, and he did 9, and then my dad came home.
Saying, hey, you guys better cool it, because you guys aren't going to stop until you get hurt.
Because neither one of us are going to give up.
In 1979, at just 19, Beth won the world speed skating title. Gold was now expected of her at the Winter Games.
In my estimation, she'd been unfairly accused of, pretending she was going to be as successful as her brother, when that was never her intent. That was put on her. It was a burden put on her by the media.
In Lake Placid, Beth competed in the 3,000 meters while Erik looked on.
She may be small in stature, but she's got a big fighting heart inside of her. Now it is spend everything you've got in the drive for the finish line. In fighting back, driving for the finish line, it's going to be Jansen across first. Bronze medal for Beth Heiden, the little lady with a big fighting heart. Terrific race.
Oh, thank you. I really put everything I had into it.
Beth, too, had fought and fought and fought in those Olympics, and finally medaled, and, and the press wasn't happy with it.
When I go out there and skate, I like to skate for myself, and this year I've sort of had the feeling that I have to skate for the press, and to hell with you guys, I had never dealt with the pressure of the press. It was a lot for me to deal with, but having my brother there dealing with it helped. And he also has a good attitude for that. He can roll with things much better than I can.
I'll tell you, it did make me feel a little bit bad for her. But I'll tell you, I was so focused on what was going on, for myself, almost to the point of being very selfish, that I didn't really let it upset me too much. But I tell you, I think it would be hard, having your big brother, who was very successful, and then you having kind of been built up by the press and the public and not living up to their expectations. I think that'd be pretty hard. Still, I kind of look at her as one of the teammates from my days as a speed skater, not really as a sister.
Five golds was an accomplishment that we were all proud of because we knew what it took.
Work and work. Well, those cars never seem to stop coming. Work and work. Keep those bags and machines humming.
He was the most talented, gifted and dedicated boy I ever met. And the secret of Erik was his perfect physical shape.
I saw him, I think, for the first time. I was 10 years old. He was very slight and little at that time, but his poise, his coordination, the finesse was already there.
Erik was such a freak of nature. I mean, the guy, he could train like nobody else could train. He was so strong, and he could do everything. He could handle the workload, any workload given to him.
There weren't many people in the world that could keep up to his workouts and the level he was at. Obviously, his legs were just like a species. I mean, if you wanted to take an anatomy class, you just had to grab one of Erik's legs, and you could see all the different muscles in your legs. But he put us through, I would say, probably about a 30% one of his workouts, and it was just amazing.
At 17 years old, Erik arrived on the scene at the 1976 Innsbruck Olympics, placing 7th in the 1,500 meters. But it was the 1977 World Championships that would be his coming out party.
It came down to the last race, the 10,000 meters, and I got paired with Piet Klein, and he was the world champion from the year before. He was a Dutch skater. We're in Heerenveen, Holland, which is like the mecca for skating in Holland. And crossing that finish line, and shoot, I'd beat the Dutch champion, and yet the Dutch were going crazy. They were giving me as much applause and admiration as they would any of their skaters. And I'll tell you, I mean, that was like my coming out. I'd finally made it as a speed skater.
Heiden became the first American male to win a world championship since 1891. After winning in 78 and 79, his popularity among Europeans soared to celebrity status.
It was crazy. It was probably more rock starish than anything else. In Norway, in Holland, he's Michael Jordan, or what Michael Jordan is today.
People were grabbing his clothes. It was sometimes hard to be with him. But in the end, for him, I think it was maybe part of the reason he got away from the sport is it just got crazy.
I work in Holland now, and even my skaters that are only 22, 23 years old, they know about the great ERIK Heiden. And I mean, he's like a living legend. People just didn't appreciate him in America. And anywhere he goes, even yet today, if he's walking the streets in Holland, they know ERIK Heiden.
He's this rock star in Norway and in Holland, and he loved coming home because nobody knew who he was.
In Norway, I'm still a big hero. And it's nice to go back there for a short period of time and be a superstar. But I'll tell you, I don't like people keeping me under the microscope all the time. I like being able to get out and do the things I want to do and nobody recognizing me.
He came to work for ABC Sports as a commentator after his days of competition were over, and it was my responsibility as the production assistant to make sure that he got into New York. Come 7 o'clock in the morning, nobody knew where ERIK Heiden was. Turns out that ERIK Heiden was sleeping on a bench at Kennedy Airport with his knapsack on, with a button on his knapsack that said, "Eat the rich." Here was this fabulously successful, famous, and now wealthy athlete who couldn't walk down a street, and probably today still can't walk down a street in Europe without being mobbed, sleeping on a bench in Kennedy Airport. ERIK Heiden was one mellow dude.
When we return, ERIK Heiden searches for new challenges, finally giving up athletics altogether.
I would probably say that I am a very driven person to the point of almost being selfish. I wasn't around for birthdays or Christmas. One of the ultimate hedonists, I don't know. I mean, I like doing the things that I like to do, and I have a hard time compromising.
His skating career over, ERIK was ready for a new challenge. And with his powerful legs and consuming work ethic, cycling seemed the perfect pursuit.
I got into cycling serious after the '80 Olympics because it is something that I had wanted to do. I wanted to take up bicycle racing, and I thought if I put the time into it, I could probably be one of the better cyclists in the U.S.
He just had really the physical ability to pick and choose almost any sport he wanted to do. And I think that choosing cycling for him made a lot of sense because he had done a lot of cycling in his preparation for speed skating.
But it was something that I wanted to try. And I wanted, like with skating, I wanted to see what my limits were. I thought it was a pretty cool sport. I had the dream of someday, racing in the Tour de France, and I wanted to see how close I could come.
There's the winner, ERIK Heiden. Unbelievable move by ERIK Heiden.
ERIK took his first giant step towards France in 1985, winning the U.S. Pro Cycling title. And by '86, he'd compete in the Tour de France. Then his dream was suddenly over.
He didn't negotiate one of the turns well and had a crash and hit his head and got back up and started riding some more. We went up to take a look at him right away as soon as we could get there. And our team doctor was in the car, and he took one look at him and said, he's out.
And unfortunately, that ended my Tour de France career right there.
In 1987, ERIK dropped out of athletic competition, a year after entering Stanford Medical School. Today, he's an orthopedic surgeon in Sacramento, California.
He is one of the athletes that you can truly, truly admire because he is devoting his life to doing something as impressive in its own way as what he did as an athlete.
And what I'm doing now, I'm giving back to society something important. I mean, I'm now what I consider a productive person in our society.
Injured athletes welcome Heiden's empathy and understanding.
Hollifield into the lane, wild-looking jumper won't go, and she's in pain, and she's holding her knee.
I think I came down off balance and tore my ACL. It helps a great deal that he's been an athlete, so he knows what I mean when I say I want really aggressive training. I want aggressive therapy. I feel a relationship with him, and I think that's how a patient and doctor should be.
Here's a guy that did something that will never be repeated in speed skating again, and then he was also able to get out of speed skating and become an orthopedic surgeon. He shows what can be achieved if you set goals and you focus on your goals.
What you do at 21 years old should not be the pinnacle of your entire life. And congratulations to him for going to medical school, for going to Stanford, for building a life apart from this achievement. So many athletes live on it and dine out on it for the rest of their lives and really are half people. Not him. He's a whole human being.
I think he's confident. I think he's satisfied. And I think he has refused to let this one moment dominate his life. And I think that's pretty good stuff.
What we saw Erik do at Lake Placid was the bright, shining crest of the mountain, the incandescent pinnacle of unaccountable dark, cold days of practice, conditioning, and self-denial. Erik chose to live in that zone, that chamber of pain and deprivation, because he wanted the prize at the end of the climb. Erik Heiden is a great American athlete, not simply because of what he did at Lake Placid, but what he did to get there and how he redirected his life afterwards. Erik Heiden, an Olympic athlete with a strong sense of time, place, and purpose. We will see you next week when the 50 greatest athletes of the 20th century continues its countdown with number 45.